Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert, and I'm a certified assistant county assessor with the Assessment Review Commission. I would like to thank Legislator Schaefer for inviting me to speak with you today to help you learn how to file a grievance online for free without the need to hire a company to do it for you. At this time, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Legislator Schaefer for a few opening remarks. And Legislator, make sure you unmute your microphone.
Unmuted, right? Good. Thank you, Robert, for hosting this and for giving all of the information you're about to give, and for your team as well. Thank you, everybody, for who's attending. This is an option you have. You have a legal right to do your own grieve your taxes, excuse me. And thankfully, the county is able to provide this resource to everyone in the county to go ahead and take this course, which is pretty short and sweet, and we'll give you all the information you need. And Robert and his team are here to answer your questions as well if something is confusing, which I don't think it will be, because I know he presents a very great, and easily understandable program. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for attending and taking the time out of your day to do this. And I hope that this proves to be very beneficial to you once you do learn how to grieve your own taxes by yourself. That's all. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Legislator. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone to take advantage of the Q&A feature of this online event. If you have any questions, please enter them into the Q&A, and we will address as many of them as we can get to at the end of the presentation. And the reason we're doing questions at the end is when we do this presentation, there's about a 30 to 40 second delay. That would prevent us from actually answering your questions in real time. It would just get too confusing. So please, anytime you think of a question, take advantage of the Q&A, and we will address everything at the end of the presentation. Alrighty, so we are going to learn tonight how to grieve your assessment, and your assessed value and your market value have an impact on how much you pay in taxes. So when you're grieving, you're going to be learning how to grieve your market value and your assessed value. You don't actually grieve your taxes directly. So why would you do this here online with us instead of using a company? Well, there's quite a few reasons, actually. First off, doing this is free. When you use another company, they typically charge you either a percentage or a flat fee, or maybe, percentage of the savings. When you file yourself, when you file a grievance online, any savings you get goes to you. You don't have to share it with anybody. You can keep an eye on your appeal easier when you do it yourself as well, especially when you do it online like we're going to show you tonight. So we're going to go through the steps. We're going to show you how to use Sales Locator. We'll explain what that is. But again, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to shoot us a question and we'll get to it at the end. So you're seeing the website for the Assessment Review Commission, and our address directly is askarcnassau.com. And as you can tell, you'll see at the bottom of the screen there is a video. That is a 6-minute YouTube. It's a shortened version of this presentation. So in case we're all done and you forgot a few things and you want to go back, just check a few notes, you can click on that video, watch it at your leisure, and start and stop it as you see fit. And you always have access to that right on our homepage. One thing else I want to point out to you is on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see it in either red or orange. It says ARC 2022-2023 brochure. And if you click on that, you can download this year's version of our brochure. This is the same brochure we've handed out for the past several years at our live speaking engagements. And perhaps most important is on the back of that brochure, we have the 2022-23 ARC calendar, which has all the important dates, including the fact that the enrollment time to appeal is January 4th through March 1st, and this year that has been extended. The deadline now is April 30th. So at first it was a due date of March 1st, and now it's April 30th. However, we kindly plead with you, do not wait until the last minute. Get your appeal in early. You can still make changes to it. Even if you did it tonight, you can go back in next week add some things, make some changes, but at least you know you have it in and it's good to go. Because if you try to file an appeal and the deadline passes before you do so, there is nothing we can do for you. So please file early. You can always go back and make changes to it later on. Very important. The other good thing about this flyer is it has not only the dates, but it has all of our contact information, our email address, our website address, our phone number as well, and a few links to other important things as well. So definitely print this out, keep a copy on your fridge. It's also a great place to keep your username and password, which we'll be telling you about momentarily. Okay, we're going to be speaking about Arrow quite a bit. Arrow stands for Assessment Review on the Web. And how you get there from our page is on the left-hand side. You see it says Arrow in the menu, and you can either click on there or you can go to it directly by typing what you see at the bottom of your screen, which is www.nassaucounty.ny.gov/arc/arrow. We're going to click on the arrow link, and now we are on the Arrow page. And again, you're going to see reminders throughout this presentation, as you see in the bottom right corner, where it reminds you that the deadline to file an appeal has been extended to April 30th, 2021. Okay, so you're on the Arrow page. If you've never filed with us before online, you're going to need to register. Or if you have filed with us before, you're going to want to check your registration information. We're going to proceed as if we are filing for the first time. So on the left-hand side, you see on the screen, it says register with ARC. We're going to click on that. And it takes you to the registration page. Now, everywhere you see an asterisk has to get filled out. So name, first name and last, street address, city, state, zip code, a phone number, all very important. About a third of the way down, almost halfway down, you see something that needs to be checked out, whether you are doing your registration for the first time or you are checking a prior registration. And that is, it says ARC is now offering the option of receiving electronic or paper notifications for offers and determinations. What that means is you have the option of getting emails from us or getting contacted by regular mail. We strongly suggest you use the online option. Every once in a while, check your spam folder, but it's much more likely that it's not going to be an issue in terms of getting your emails as compared to maybe things get lost in the mail or don't get there in a timely fashion. We really recommend the electronic contact, but again, it's entirely up to you. Next, they're asking for an email address. Now, if you are filing for the first time, you're just going to give them your email address. If you've filed in the past, you want to check this and make sure what you gave them last year is still valid. If you gave them your work address and you're working someplace else, you're going to want to change that. If you were with FiOS last year and now you're with Cablevision or Opt Online, you're going to want to change that. So double check and make sure the email address is valid, because that's going to be the primary way that ARC communicates with you. You're going to choose a user ID and you're going to enter a password and re-enter it again. Again, we remind you that that brochure is a great place to write down your username and password, so everything you need is in one place. You're going to read through all the legalese you see at the bottom of the page, and then when you're all set, click on Complete Registration. When you do so, you will see a sign that says, "Thank you for registering. Please click to continue." And it brings you back to the Arrow page. And now you'll notice in the middle where it says, "Welcome to Arrow Assessment Review on the Web," it says your name, and in our case, it says John Smith. Now, if you're all done at this point, if you've finished for the night, you don't want to do the rest of your application, you just want to register. On the left-hand side where it says Log Out, you can click on Log Out, and you're out of your account. That's also very important if you were working on a computer that's not yours. Perhaps you don't have a personal computer, and you're at the library, public computer. You want to make sure you protect your information. So when you're all done, you click on Log Out. Also, after registering, you're going to get an email from ARC sent to the email address you used on the registration page. Now, it may not look exactly like this, but it's going to have similar information, including your first name and last name, the address you used, the user ID, and so forth. And that should all be correct. You can double check that. If there's a problem, you can always reach out to customer service. Okay, so now that you're registered, or if you rechecked your registration, next time you go to Arrow, you're going to click on the Login tab on the left-hand side. You're going to enter the username and password, and you're going to click Login. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about filing using Sales Locator. Now, ARC has provided a Sales Locator tool that's going to be assisting you to filing or filling out your application form for residential 1, 2, or 3 family homes only. Unfortunately, Sales Locator cannot be used for condos or for co-ops. Now, the Sales Locator, what it does is provides adjusted sales prices of properties that are comparable to yours, which can help you determine if your property is currently overvalued. And we'll discuss a little bit more in a second about what it means to be comparable. So to file an appeal with the assistance of Sales Locator, at the bottom of the screen where you see where it says, do you have a good case for filing an appeal? You're going to click on that link. It's going to bring you into the Sales Locator. The next step is to perform a property search. Now, you can do so one of two ways. You could enter the section, block, and lot number of your parcel, which most folks don't know. Don't worry about it. So what you can do otherwise is enter your address. So you see where it says property search, they're going to ask for the house number and street name. Now, we're putting the street name, Christie, but we're not putting anything else after that, whether it's street or avenue or lane. We are just putting in the name of the street, in this case, Christie. The reason being, if you were to put in something besides that, say it was Christie Street, and you typed in Christie and then you spelled out street, S-T-R-E-E-T, yet in the system, it's listed as Christie Street, S-T, then your property is not going to come up. That's why you just put a number and the street name with no suffix afterwards. You're going to add a city, add a zip code, and click search. Your property should come up at the bottom of the screen. If there's multiple properties listed for your area, or perhaps different towns but same address, make sure you choose the proper one by clicking on the parcel ID. Next, they're going to ask you for a security code to prove that you are not a robot. So there's a black box on the left-hand side. You're going to take those letters and numbers and type those into the white box to the right of it. Now, it's not case sensitive, which means whether you type uppercase or lowercase, it doesn't make a difference as long as those letters and numbers are correct. You're going to click continue, and it should bring you to a screen like this where you can see your home and information about your home. So we're looking at our subject. In this case, it's 504 Christie Street in Hempstead. Class is 1, residential. Property use is a 1 family. It's located in the Rockville Center Union Free School District, not in a village, and it's located in the town of Hempstead. On the right-hand side of your screen, it talks about the assessment information for 2022/23. The appeal period is January 4th to March 1st, and as you see above on top, it reminds you that has since been extended to April 30th. At the bottom of the screen, you see where it says taxable market value, $461,000. That is a number determined by the Department of Assessment, and they're saying as of January 4th, which is the valuation date, if you were to sell your home on that date, you should get a value or a sale price of $461,000. And that translates to an assessed value of $461. Now let's look at the left side of the page where it says dwelling information, and we're going to zoom in a little bit closer so you can see what's going on there. Okay, so as you see on the left-hand side, it talks about style, which is a cape, construction, aluminum, vinyl, year built, lot size, which is the size of your property in terms of square footage, living area. In this case, it's 1,332 square feet. Now, when they're talking living area, they're not talking about if you have a finished attic or if you have a basement that's finished. This is purely the main above grade levels. So in this case, we have a cape, which has a first floor and a second floor, and it has a basement. This 1,332 square feet only includes the first floor and the second floor. That's it. Now you see it has full bathrooms. We have 2, no half bathrooms, a 1-car garage, and a basement. Now, if any of this information is incorrect, you have the option to change it by clicking on Change Values. So in this example we're showing you, it says we have 2 full baths. In actuality, we have 3. So you would click on Change Values. You would change the 2 to a 3, and you would click where it says apply changes, and that would change it. Now, however, it's important to know these changes are only done to sales locator. So if there's any mistakes that are in the public record, you need to contact the Department of Assessment directly to make these changes. So on the left-hand side, if it said you had 15 bathrooms, and in actuality you have 2, well, you can make the change by clicking change values and changing that 15 to a 2 and clicking apply. But that would only change it in this sales locator. It wouldn't change it permanently. Anything like that, you'd have to contact the Department of Assessment. Their phone number is right on the screen. We'll have it at the end. For anything that's interior, a bathroom, a kitchen, they may have to come inside your house and do an inspection, and they would call you. You would speak to them and make an appointment. They wouldn't just show up. If it's something outside your house that's visible from the street, perhaps they think you have a garage, but the garage was knocked down 2 years ago, that they made us require you to, let us know, and we'll drive by, and they'll drive by your house to see the garage isn't there and make an adjustment. But again, to make any changes that are permanent, you need to call Department of Assessment. So we're going to keep it as a 2 full bath. And we're going to click where it says find sales, and it's going to start searching for comparable sales. Now, when we say comparable sales, what are comparable sales? Well, our subject is a CAPE. As you can see at the top of the list, it has 504 Christie. That's our subject, and it puts it there because it makes it easier for you to compare and contrast to other sales in the area. So our home is a CAPE. So we're going to try and find other CAPEs that are similar in living area and lot size and age. Now, you do the best you can. You may not get something exact or even close, but you look at these sales, and all of these sales are located in the same school district as our subject. And you can see on the left-hand side where it says proximity in miles, it's showing you how close in proximity these homes are to yours. So you ideally would try to find homes as close as possible to yours. Now, when you're choosing sales, you can choose up to 5 comparable sales that can be added using the sales locator feature. You can add sales later on to your application, but you can only use 5 in this example. Now, we are only using 3. So you see, we've checked off 3 CAPEs that are somewhat similar to ours. One more thing before we continue. When you're looking at these sales, now your mindset, of course, is I want to find homes that sold for less than my home is assessed for, because you want to prove that your home is overassessed. You may find them, they may not. You may look at these sales and realize your home is fairly assessed. When you're looking at sales, you're looking for market sales. And what does it mean that's a market sale? A market sale means you have a person who's trying to sell their house. You have a person who's trying to buy the house. They negotiate. They meet in the middle, hopefully, and that's the market value, whatever they sell it for. What's not a market sale? If someone passed away and the family is just selling the house quickly to get rid of it, that's not a market sale. If the bank is foreclosing and then just tries to sell your home, that's not a valid market sale. Now, you don't have the information when you're looking at this to determine exactly which sales are market and which sales aren't, but one good clue is you're looking at these sales right now. Most of these sales are selling in the 4s, maybe the 5s. If you see a sale that's an oddball, like in this case, it was selling for $250,000. Well, you can see by all the other sales that that $250,000 was probably not a market sale. It's kind of an oddball sale. So you wouldn't use it. Now, can we stop you from using it? No, we can't. But the appraisers that are going to be reviewing your appeal are going to look at these sales, realize that there's something funky about the sale, look it up, determine that it wasn't a market sale, and then not use it in their analysis of your application. So again, the appraisers that are going to be looking at these sales, if you include them, know what they're looking at. So if it looks odd, my recommendation is not to use it. Okay, so we've chosen 3 sales. Like I said, on the left-hand side, you can see the 3 check boxes. We're going to click Select Check Properties and Continue. And now you can see your subject side by side along the comparable sales we've chosen. And you'll also see some adjustments. So first we're going to look at the top line that's in yellow, which shows the sale prices, what these homes these comparable sales you've chosen have actually sold for. Sale number 1 is 508 Stratford Road. It sold on September 13th, 2019 for $430,000. If you keep on going down that column, you'll see it's a one family, it's a cape, similar in age to our subject. Now you get to where it says adjustments. And what's going to happen here is that the computer is going to adjust or compensate for a difference between your home and these comparable sales. So if you look at our subject, it has a lot area of 7735. The first sale has a lot area of 6240. It's about 1,500 square feet smaller. So the computer is going to add value to that first sale in order to account for that difference in lot size. Our home, our subject, has 2 full bathrooms. This sale, sale 1, only has 1 bathroom. So the computer has added $10,000 in this case of value to account for the lack of 2 full baths. If you keep on going down, you'll see there's a difference in living area between the subject and that first sale, and it's made an adjustment. And our subject has a garage. Sale 1 does not have a garage, so again, value has been added. So after all of these adjustments have been made, it's determined that the home that sold for $430,000, if it was more like our subject, if it was bigger, if it had a bigger lot, had 2 baths instead of 1, more than likely would have sold for $467,955. So that's how the adjustments are made. And again, they're done automatically by the computer. And as you see, they're done for sales 2 and 3. And at the bottom in the yellow box line, you see that now you have the adjusted sales prices. So normally when you have 3 numbers, you would take them, add them up, divide them by 3, and get an average. You do have one other option though in this case. Right above the bottom yellow box, it says weight. And this allows you to not just do a regular average, but do what's called a weighted average. And what that means is if you're looking at these 3 sales and you decide that maybe one of these sales is a better support, better proof to help your case, you may decide, well, you know what? Sale 1 is my best sale. It really helps my case much better than those other 2 sales. Well, where it says weight, I could take out that number 34 and I could put 50, make that 50% of the weight is going to go on to sale 1. And then I could change the other 2 so they're 25 and 25, has to equal 100%. So in that case, the average sale price and the weighted sale price could be significantly different. It's an option you have. You don't have to do it. We're going to keep it the way it is. We're going to click on continue in the bottom left-hand corner. And at this point, the system reminds you that ARC's sales locator is not an appraisal. It's not an opinion on the value of your property by the Assessment Review Commission. And you have to acknowledge that disclaimer in order to proceed. So you would click on I agree, proceed, and then you'll see results for selected sales. Like I said, in this case, the weighted adjusted sale price and the average adjusted sales price are very similar because we didn't change any of the weighting. But if you had made that change, those numbers could be vastly different. And again, to remind you, it says taxable market value. Your home right now is valued at $461,000. So based on the comparable sales you chose, it would appear that your assessed value, your market value, is actually about $16,000 less than what the comparables would appear to support. So does that mean you can't file an appeal? Absolutely not. You do not have to use Sales Locator. You don't even have to give us comparable sales in order to file an appeal. It's entirely up to you. So we're going to go ahead and click on Continue to Submit an Appeal. And now we are actually getting to the appeal part of the process. So the first thing you'll do is you're going to click on your property type from the drop-down list to get to the application form. For most of you, you're going to use Form AR1, which is for value claims for a 1, a 2, or a 3-family home. So click on the drop-down, choose AR1. Now, because you use Sales Locator, 2 sections get automatically filled out with the information from Sales Locator. So in this case, Part B, where it asks you to decide what you want your full market value to be, it's automatically put in the average sale price from Sales Locator. In Part E, it's automatically inserted the 3 sales you chose as comparables into Part E. Now, we'll get back to those sections in a second, but I just wanted to show how that information, if you use Sales Locator, gets put into your appeal automatically. One more thing before we start going section by section for the appeal. Throughout the appeal, you're going to see question marks. As you see, it says taxpayer applicant's full name, and it's got a question mark. Those question marks mean there's help for you if you're not sure what they're looking for. All you have to do is take your mouse and hover it right over the question mark. You don't even have to click. If you put your mouse over that question mark, a little yellow pop-up box is going to appear. And in this case, it's going to say, if you own the house, write your name. If you're filing for a relative who owns the house, write that person's name, and so on. And these boxes, they're there to help you out throughout the application, kind of like someone standing over your shoulder, ready to give you some information. Okay, so on to the application now. We are in Part A. It's required. You're going to enter the taxpayer applicant's full name, the property owner, and the form type. So you'll see from Sales Locator, the parcel ID is there and the address is there, as well as the name they have on the public rolls. You are going to enter the taxpayer applicant's full name. Below it, it asks for property owner. If you have a co-owner, if you have a spouse, you can put them in that next box. Our staff, if you make a phone call and call our staff is only allowed to speak to the people on the application. So if John and Jean Smith own the house, but only John is on the application, if Jane calls, our staff will not be able to speak to her about the application. So please, if you have a spouse, when in doubt, put their name on the application. Below that is form. For most of you, you're going to choose individual, but if any of the other options apply, you would choose that. Part B. Now, like we said before, Sales Locator automatically enters this information for you. However, you may not agree with it. So it's asking for the full market value that you feel is actually what your home is worth. So again, Department of Assessment says your home was worth $461,000 and you feel that's too high. So you want to enter a number that's lower. So in this case, Sales Locator's number is higher. It's not going to help you. So maybe you want to erase that and put in, say, $430,000 or $440,000. It's entirely up to you. Below that, it's asking whether or not the home has been offered for sale, if it's recently sold, if it's in contract. If the answer to any of those is yes, you would choose yes from the drop-down menu and enter the price. That's Part B, nice and easy. Talk about easy, Part C gets filled out for you automatically. It's just asking for the type of representative. Representative itself, it gets done automatically. You are all set. Okay, Part D. Part D is my favorite part of the application. And to see all of Part D, there's a pink button that says display. You're going to click on display and open the entire section of Part D so you can see everything. Part D is asking for various information about your house. Now, this is entirely optional, as it says at the top. You can fill in as much, as little, or none of this at all. It's entirely up to you. The reason I like Part D is it's a chance for you to tell about your location and how your location may affect the value of your home. So if you go down to like the bottom third, you'll see it starts saying, are any of these adjacent to or visible from your home? And it talks about various external characteristics of your home. And again, remember with real estate, it's location, location, location. There are things that you can't change about your home's location that might have an adverse impact on your home's value if you were to sell it. So let's look at waterfront. Now, waterfront may add a lot of value to your home, or it may be seen as a negative. What do I mean by that? Well, if you live on the North Shore, calm water, maybe you have beautiful views of the Sound, and that would add value to your home. But if you live on the South Shore and every time it rains, the water comes up over your dock and floods your home, that could be seen as a negative. So you can click on waterfront, and below where it says other facts, explain why you clicked off on waterfront. Railroad. Is being near the railroad good or bad? Well, if you're in an area where people like to commute to the city and don't want to have to find a parking space so they can just walk there from their home, then being by the railroad may not be a bad thing. But if the railroad just adds noise to your area, that might be a negative thing. So again, you check off railroad and type in other facts why this is a good or a bad thing. Apartment houses, parks, commercial property, golf course, Whatever the case may be, you look at all these and determine if any of these are a factor. Street with a painted center line or other traffic separation. Are you on a busy road? Are you near a busy road? Are you near a school? Maybe you're a couple of blocks from a school, but your street is the first street that allows people to park on the street. So maybe people from a school all park on your street and you can't get a parking space. You are the owner or you live in your house. You are the best advocate to explain why things matter in terms of the value of your home. So take the time, go through Part D, figure out if you were buying your home, would any of these factors or something maybe they're not mentioned be a negative factor that they would say, I was going to buy your house for $500,000, but it's located back into a railroad, so I'm only willing to pay $475,000, whatever the case may be. That's the mindset. One more thing before we continue. Other facts, there's a limit to how much you can type there, but there's not a limit to how much you can tell us in your application. So if other facts doesn't give you enough time, or excuse me, enough room to tell us what you need to tell us, type everything out on a Word document or a Google Doc. And we're going to show you later on how you can attach that document to your application. So don't feel limited by the appeal, by the application. You can tell us as much as you need to tell us. But again, Part D, entirely optional. You can leave it blank. I recommend you don't. Part E, again, entirely optional. You do not have to give us any comparable sales whatsoever. However, if you do, if you use Sales Locator, they'll appear automatically in your appeal. Now, are you stuck with these sales if you decide you don't want them? Nope. On the left-hand side, you see where it says delete parcel. If any of these sales you decide is not helping your case or you just don't like it, click delete parcel right under the parcel ID and it will take that sale out. You also have the option on the far right side to add comments. So let's say 508 Stratford Road sold, and the reason it sold for what it did was because it was gut renovated, it had a brand new kitchen, granite countertops, and so forth. Well, you can let us know that by typing it in the comments and say I saw photos and this thing was entirely redone and that's why it sold for so much. That's fine. At the bottom of the screen, you see it says click to search for parcel ID, and that section is blank. That is where you can add more comparable sales. Now, you would look for the sales from a variety of sources. You can get them from Zillow, Realtor.com. One of the best sources is to contact local realtors and say, hi, I'm trying to lower my assessment, lower my assessed value. Can you help me with comparable sales? And lots of times they're willing to help you. Many of them are hoping that if and when you sell your house in the future, you'll remember the nice realtor who helped you out. So if you have a sale that you got on your own, you want to add it to your application, on the left-hand side in the blank box, you see that in the little magnifying glass over there, you would click that, you would enter the address to search for it the exact same way you put your property in at the beginning by doing a search. And then you can manually add a sale date, a sale price, and then you could add comments and say, I found this on Zillow or I got this from multiple listing, whatever the case may be. We also get asked quite often, how many comps do I need to give you? Well, first off, you don't have to give us any comparables. However, there's no magic number. If you find 2 or 3 really good sales that support your case, that's great. Some people put 5. Some people think 10 are good. My experience is if you can't prove your case in 3 or 5 sales, then 10 probably isn't going to do it for you. Again, we're not going to stop you from giving us 10, but my experience as an appraiser has been if 3, 4, or 5 sales can't prove your case, adding more isn't going to help you. But again, it's entirely up to you. That's just my opinion. So that's part A. Again, entirely optional. You do not have to give us sales at all, but if you give us sales, that's where they go. Okay, part F. You have another security box to make sure you haven't transformed into a robot while you were doing this. You're going to read through the signatory certification, making sure you realize that everything you put into this appeal is true to the best of your knowledge. You're certifying that. You're going to click off on the owner of record or whatever option is appropriate for you, and you're going to click submit application form. Now, one of the great features of doing this online as compared to mailing this in is if you screw up, you're going to find out right away. So as you see, we made a mistake, and it says there's errors found in Part A, errors found in Part B, The appeal has not been submitted. Please fix the errors and resubmit. So you'll notice in Part A, it shows us where the errors are. In Part B, it shows us where the errors are. So we would fix those mistakes and then click on Submit Changes. And this time, if we get it right, you're going to get a red confirmation message on your screen saying your appeal has been submitted with application number XYZ, whatever the case may be, and you may make changes or resubmit or choose one of the following. So that's how you know your appeal has been submitted. You will also get an email, and again, it may not look exactly like this, but you'll get an email with an appeal number confirming that we've gotten your appeal. It's been received. Now, a couple quick things to remember before we go on. You can do just the most basic information. You can fill out A and B and C and F. That's it. Really quick, do it in like 5 minutes, submit your appeal, and you've got your appeal in. And then you can go back a week or two later or even a month later if time permits and make changes as long as you have it on file. If you start to do this and you walk away from the screen for 5-10 minutes, it may time out. If it times out and kicks you out of the form, you've got to go back to the beginning and start all over again. You can't just start from where you were. So give yourself at least a few minutes or do the bare minimum to get it in, and then you can always go back if you need more time later on to make any changes. Okay, now that you're done, you have the option to return to the home page. If you're all done, you could submit another appeal in the same manner if you have other properties. Or you can click on View and Add Attachments to your appeal. Now, why would you add attachments? Well, like I mentioned before, if you wanted to fill something out on a Word document, or perhaps you had an appraisal done because you had a refinance done in your home about 6 months ago, and that's going to support your case. Well, you could add that to your appeal, and the appraiser reviewing your case would take a look at it. So what you would do is click on View or Add Attachments, which we're going to do. It's going to ask you, would you like to add an attachment now? You're going to click yes. Pop-up window is going to appear. It's going to now, you'll say to upload an attachment. You're going to click on Choose File. You're going to navigate to the attachment and double click on it the same way you would as if you were adding an attachment to an email. You'll choose from a document type from a drop-down list. On the right-hand side, you see it could be legal document, maps, photos. If nothing else applies, choose other. Then you're going to click on Submit Attachment. And as you can see in the middle of the screen, it says file name test.pdf. Now, if you made a mistake, if it's the wrong thing, you can click on Delete Document. It will take it out of the system. Or you can add more documents by clicking on Upload New Document, and do the same thing. If you're all done, you can return to the appeal by clicking on Return to the Appeal form. One thing very important to mention at this time, you can only add or delete documents or attachments to your appeal by yourself up until the filing period ends. So until April 30th, you can make these changes yourself. After April 30th, you still can make changes, but you can't do them yourself. You're going to have to send them in to our staff, and they will make the changes for you. So say you do this now, and then 3 weeks later, you had an appraisal done on the house and you want to include it. You could add that yourself. Say you had the appraisal done May 1st. That's after April 30th. You can't attach it yourself, but what you can do is pop that in the mail to the Assessment Review Commission, 240 Old Country Road, 5th floor, Mineola, New York, 11501, attention residential supervisor. And when we get that information, that documentation, we will scan it in and add it to your appeal for you. Okay, after clicking Return to the Appeal form, when all your documentation for the appeal has been uploaded, you will see that your application has been received by ARC. And if you look on the right-hand side, about 2/3 down, you'll see it says Status Received. Now, if you're all done, you can either click on the arrow Home tab, or you can click Log Out. And again, if you're at a public computer and you're all done, make sure you click on the Log Out tab. You can go back and check your application at any time by going to the Appeal Filing Status Change tab. Okay, so that is how you use Sales Locator. again, you are not required to use Sales Locator. You're not required to include sales. So we're going to show you quickly how to file an appeal without using Sales Locator. Now, the methodology is very similar, so we're going to kind of go through this a little quicker because there's a lot of repetition. However, if you go too fast, if you still have a question at the end, don't hesitate. Toss us that question. We'll be happy to get to it. So in this case, you've registered. You're going to click on File an Appeal online, which is either on the left-hand side or at the bottom, number 2, where it says File an Appeal. Going to click on that. You're going to choose the right form. And again, for a 1, 2, or 3-family home, you'll choose the AR1 form. Now, in this case, because we are not using Sales Locator, now is where you would search for your parcel. So again, you could either use the parcel ID if you happen to know it, or use the property search to look for your property. And again, we remind you, put the street number, street name, but nothing after it. No street, no avenue, no ST, none of that. Town, zip code, you include that. Click search. Hopefully it'll show you your parcel, and then you would click on the parcel ID. Okay, now we're back to part A. And again, you're going to put your full name, property owners, good time to include your spouse or co-owner, and choose the correct form. In this case, it's individual. Now, part B, it's blank because we didn't use Sales Locator. So again, you're going to enter a number here. Now, a reminder, when you're entering a number here for the full market value, you do not include a dollar sign. You don't include a decimal point. You don't include any commas. So if you wanted to put down, say in this spot, $430,000, you would put 430,000. That's it. Again, like before, if you have had your house for sale or it's under contract or anything like that applies, choose yes and indicate the price. Like before, Part C is done automatically. There is nothing to do here. Part D, same as before, it's entirely optional. If you want to see the entire section, click on the pink display. It'll open it up. Fill out as much or as little as you want. Again, this is entirely optional. Like I said before, I think this is a great place to make your case, especially if there's something to do with your home's location that impacts the value. Part E. Now, because you didn't use Sales Locator, it's entirely blank. But you can add sales like before by searching for them, getting them from various sources, including realtors, realtor.com, Zillow, and so forth. But again, you are not required to give us any sales when you're filing your appeal. You can leave us entirely blank. It's entirely up to you. Part F, like before, enter the security code, read over that certification statement. You're going to choose which one you are in terms of a signatory certification. Are you owner of record? Most of you, that's going to be yes. And then you click Submit Application Form just like before. And again, any mistakes are made, it's going to show you the errors right away. Errors found in A, errors found in B. Make those changes before you are able to submit your appeal. So you make those changes in the appropriate sections. You click on Submit Changes, and this time you get the confirmation number and a message on your screen saying you did a good job. You'll get an email saying the same thing. Again, we remind you every so often, check your spam folder. Make sure that you didn't miss an email because it's in your spam folder. Okay, if you want to make any changes to your appeal anytime after you've completed it, left-hand side, it says Appeal Filing, Status Change. You would click on that. You should find the appeals located below. If they're not there and you need to search, you can search for them in case you have other ones, multiple properties and so forth. And you can search by parcel ID, by application number, by year, and so forth. As you see, our home is located at the bottom of the screen. We're going to click on the left where it says application number. And now once you're on the application page, you can edit the information you provided or confirm any new information. So in this example, Part B, we wanted to make a change to Part B. It says 460. We want to make it 420. So we would erase 460. We would type in 420, and we would click on Submit Changes. Again, you're not redoing the entire application, so you don't resubmit the application. You just submit the changes for the section you made a change to, in this case, Part B. And again, you can only make any changes or additions to the form yourself online until April 30th. After that, any changes you want to make, you've got to mail them into our office, and our staff will do it for you. If you decide you want to add any more documents to your appeal, you can click on where it says ARC Communications/Attachments. At this point, you can either add by uploading a new document, or if you need to delete something, you can click on Delete, same as before. Okay, one final thing and we are done with the main part of the presentation. Withdrawing your appeal. You can only have one appeal on file. If you have multiple appeals in the system for the same property, neither one of them will get reviewed. So if for some reason there are two appeals in there, perhaps you use a rep and then you changed your mind and you want to do it yourself, or you did it yourself and now you want to go with a rep, you need to delete the one that's in the system. So what you would do is make sure your pop-up blockers are turned off. And if you're not sure how to do that, you can double check by doing a search on your browser and checking to make sure they're on. Excuse me. So you need the pop-up blocker on, because you're going to click on the left-hand side where it says Withdraw Appeal. A box pops open, and basically it says, are you sure? Are you positive? Are you really sure you want to delete this appeal? Because once you delete the appeal, you can't undo it. If you delete the appeal and then change your mind, you've got to go back to the beginning and do the form all over again. Once you are sure, you're going to click on the checkbox where it says, I have read the terms of the agreement. You're going to click I agree, and your appeal has been withdrawn. You'll notice on the status on the right-hand side, it says status is withdrawn. So believe it or not, we've gone through everything. It is now time to answer your questions. And to answer those questions, I am going to ask Jeremy May, the Vice Chairperson of ARC, to join us.
Well, thank you, Rob, and good evening, everybody. I've been corresponding with some of you using the Q&A feature, and I hope that you don't mind, but I'd like to share your questions or paraphrases thereof with the audience in the case that my answers can assist the entire audience. Rob, thank you as usual for a wonderful presentation. And I think that Rob and I, between the two of us, provide a broader perspective, and we'll get to all of the answers that we absolutely can. Rob and I have different education and training. As he mentioned, he's one of our appraisers. My training and education is in the law. So that all being said, let's see if we can provide any assistance. We had some members of the audience who were concerned that they may be disadvantaging themselves if they file on their own, as opposed to using, as opposed to hiring a representative. Well, I mean, this is a decision that everyone has to make for themselves. Are there representatives out there who have competence and who can put together a persuasive application on your behalf? Yes. They require compensation for their time. So in part, you're going to have to decide if you think that their expertise is worth the compensation that they seek. At the same time, does ARC see representatives that we are less impressed by and are less successful in arguing on behalf of property owners? Yes. And then at the same time, does ARC see property owners who put together wonderfully competent applications on their own and secure reductions? Yes. So there's no simple answer to that question. I think everyone has to evaluate for themselves whether they think that a company is skilled enough to be worth the compensation they are going to seek to file on your own behalf. I think Rob and I are of like minds when we advocate that the property owner is going to be the best advocate for their home because you live there. You experience your quality of life. You know about those contextual issues that a company would not necessarily know. You know about the park and how often that the park attracts less than desirable behavior, perhaps. You know about the traffic situation at what times of the day your street is jam-packed with people trying to escape Hempstead Turnpike. So property owners are absolutely capable of putting together a persuasive and competent appeal without the need to hire a company to do it for you. Would you perhaps find a company that can, quote, do a better job? Again, maybe. We couldn't answer that on any individual basis. But At the same time, please also realize that our process is based in facts and based in reality. So if you have a wonderfully competent representative and your home is just simply not entitled to a reduction, it does not matter how wonderful that representative is, ARC would not be offering a reduction on that property. Simultaneously, it could be the case that a less eloquent or perhaps less competent, for lack of a better word, representative happens to have a client who is entitled to a reduction. You know, even if Rob and I are not necessarily impressed by that representative's application, if that property is entitled to a reduction, we're going to be offering the reduction. And if a property owner submits an application that is not necessarily as eloquent as a representative's, but at the same time demonstrates that the property is overassessed, Rob's analysis is going to recommend a reduction, and ARC is going to offer that reduction. So I don't think that it is strictly the case that a person is disadvantaged by filing an application by themselves as opposed to using a representative. Since the analysis is fact-based and what we're looking at is market sales and what we're looking at is the context of the property, I think that property owners are more than qualified to file the appeal on their own behalf and achieve success if ARC agrees that they should be successful. Okay, so we have a question here about the purchase price of the home. So for the more recent homeowner who purchased the home that they are grieving on within the last couple of years, your sales price can certainly be very relevant to the question of what your property is worth. I have to say can be because as Rob and I sit here, we don't know the circumstances behind your sale. Did you inherit the home? Did you purchase it from a relative? Did you purchase it as a result of a foreclosure? There are circumstances where the price that you paid for the home is not necessarily a market price. And as Rob explained earlier in the presentation, what we're looking for when we're looking to analyze market sales are sales between essentially two strangers, one of which is interested in selling the house for absolutely last penny that they can get, and one of which is interested in purchasing the house for the least amount of pennies that they can possibly part with. So if that describes your purchase of your property, and that was in the near past, then yes, that sale is very relevant to our analysis of the value of your home. It is not necessarily determinative. So if you've purchased your home significantly in the past, for instance, I think Rob mentioned that Sales Locator is typically looking at sales within 18 months. If you purchased your home 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, the further out in time your purchase price is, the less relevant it becomes to the question of what was your home worth on January 4th of this year. So if you did recently purchase your home, your sale price can be relevant, and that can cut in both ways. But the older in time your sale is, the less useful it is as an indication of market value. Okay, so we have a question here about how we can go about analyzing what a home is worth. And the question is, can tax bills be used to help make that determination? The short answer is no. The Assessment Review Commission has the responsibility of determining what the property was worth this year, and any tax bills that you may be comparing are from a previous year's assessment. So right there, you're not even comparing apples to apples anymore. But even then, when you are valuing property for assessment purposes, there are essentially 3 methodologies that are accepted as valid to do so. And of those 3 methodologies, one of them is really applicable to residential. The other 2 are largely not. And the one that is applicable is the comparable market analysis. We're looking at what the market demonstrates your property is worth on any given date based on what similar properties were selling for as of that date. And additionally, while I can understand that there may be a perception of inequity in that. If that you are looking at others in your neighborhood and you have concluded that their taxes are lower when they should not be, I can certainly understand why one would disagree with that. But the question that ARC is trying to answer when we are looking at these applications is, what is the property worth as of January 4th? And while it may very well be the case that a neighboring property is underassessed, it is not proof that the property that we are looking at is overassessed. So again, I could understand why there would be disagreement there, why one would think that that may be inequitable. But as far as the strict question of what is the value of the property that we're looking at as of any one particular date, tax bills of neighboring homes are just not useful, except to the extent that they push market values. And again, we would determine that by looking at what people are buying and selling similar homes for, rather than the tax bills themselves. Okay. We have a question here about Part A, one of which is we ask you to tell us about any other co-owners. And the question is, do you have to put co-owners on the appeal? The answer is no. Any one property owner certainly has the right to file an appeal under their own name, and they don't have to include any of the co-owners. The only thing that Rob and I would ask is that you be very sure that you are going to encounter no situations where you would want one of your co-owners to speak to the Assessment Review Commission, because if there's only one name on this application, that is the only person that we are permitted to speak with. So if you're okay with being, the buck stopping with you, then there's no danger in just putting your own single name on the application. But if there is a circumstance where that may potentially come back and bite you, you might want to think about that a little bit before you finalize that.
Yes, and Jeremy, as long as we're talking about that, it's probably a good time to remind folks as well. If you use a firm, if you use a rep, once you've used a rep, then we can no longer speak to you about your appeal either. If you have any questions about an appeal that's been filed by a rep that you hired, we could only speak to the rep. You'd have to call the rep to get any information about the appeal. Even though it's your property, they're the representative. We can't speak to you once you've hired them and they've submitted for you. So that, again, is something to keep in mind. That's different between when you hire a company and when you do it yourself.
And thank you, Rob. That also reminds me of another point to consider. If you have a co-owner and you file an application and only put your name on it, and then your co-owner files an application and only puts their name on it, well, now you have two applications for the same property, and ARC actually can't get to a final determination. We would need one of those applications to be withdrawn. So that would be another consideration if you have co-owners, about whether or not you want to have them all on the same paperwork. Okay, we have a concern here about timing of sales, and specifically what they are looking at on Prognos, which is part of MyNassauProperty.com, the Department of Assessment's public records site. So I think this may have been in response to when Rob was explaining that Sales Locator is basically programmed to look for sales within 18 months of January 4th. And this particular member of the audience noted that on Prognos that a sale from 2016 was used. At first, I had to distinguish that Prognos and the Department of Assessment are a separate agency and service from the Assessment Review Commission and our Sales Locator. They do not intermingle. But even beyond that, the 18 months is a guideline. It is not a set in stone law. And what do I mean by that? So we prefer more recent sales because more recent sales are going to be more relevant to the question of the value of your home as of January 4th. But in that circumstance where you have a home that may be a little unique or in an area that does not see much market movement, the most recent sales could possibly be from as old as 2016, as in this particular example. If that's the most recent market data you have, that may be, the most recent market data you have. But as a guideline, we are looking at more recent sales, preferably within the last 18 months only. But if those are not available and you have data from 2016, tell Rob about your data from 2016. He's going to want to look at it. Okay. As just a matter of logistics, the Arrow app is the same service for the firms as it is for the pro se homeowner. So ARC does not offer a separate website to representatives versus the property owner who's filing on their own. It's all the same system. Okay, so this question is a little bit outside the scope of our presentation, and it's actually quite a bit outside Rob and I's wheelhouse, but we'll help to the extent that we can. The question is, how are total property taxes calculated? So big topic, right, Rob?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I'm sending them, and I'm going to post this in the Q&A as well, a handy dandy link to a frequently asked you question, a fact that DOA has about this very topic.
Great. So the short version that Rob and I are comfortable speaking about in this presentation is that you have the assessment of your home, and that is ultimately calculated against a tax rate. And that tax rate is generated after a lot of very complicated math that involves questions such as, what is your school district? What are your special districts? Which town do you live in? What are the budgets of all those individual government entities? And you know, who in that school district has recently been subject to a fire that has damaged their property? Who has recently torn down their property and is in the middle of building a new one? Who has exemptions? Who doesn't have exemptions? A lot of data goes into ultimately calculating what taxes are for each individual property in a district. And Rob and I are by no means experts, and that's probably as confident as I am in my ability to assist with that question. But for our purposes, what ARC contributes to that conversation is that Rob and I and our agency is here to answer the question, what is the property worth as of a certain status date? And then that can be used as part of the ultimate calculation to arrive at a tax bill.
And like I said, there's a link in the Q&A for anyone who wants to go there that discusses about how assessment relates to taxes. So you can just click on the link. It'll take you right to the DOA's page where they have a whole bunch of questions and answers on that very topic.
Okay, so we have an enterprising member of the audience who has been visiting MyNASA property while we've been speaking about it and looking at their results there and asking the question, you know, is it worth grieving my assessment at all? So I take perhaps a unique stance on this question. I don't think it is my role as a member of the Assessment Review Commission to encourage any one individual property owner to grieve or not to grieve. I think Rob and my responsibility is to educate our constituents as to their right to grieve and how they may grieve, but ultimately encourage them to make the decision on whether to grieve on their own after their own research. And the question that I recommend that anyone ask themselves when considering whether or not to file is whether or not you agree with the value that the Department of Assessment published. I wouldn't concern myself necessarily if, you know, the value that they published is less than any one particular market sale. I think that the question that one should be asking themselves is, do I agree with this value? And if the answer is that you don't agree with that value, well, that's a pretty good indication that you'd want to file an appeal. Okay, so at this time, let me follow up. There was a follow-up to that question. So the Assessment Review Commission has absolutely zero ability to increase an assessment on a property. Certainly not as a result of an appeal. So appealing with the Assessment Review Commission cannot harm you in any way. You will not pay 1 more cent in taxes for filing with the Assessment Review Commission than if you had not filed at all. And that's even if the Assessment Review Commission were to think or were to conclude that your property were underassessed. We simply do not have the authority to do that. So if anyone is concerned that they don't want to file because they are afraid that their assessment will go up, you may put that fear to rest. That is just simply something that cannot happen.
I want to alert everybody, and by the way, if anybody has any new questions, we're here for a few more minutes if you want to ask them. But in the Q&A, I posted a link to our website, as well as our customer service phone number and customer service email. There is also a direct link that you can click on to download that brochure we spoke about in the beginning of the presentation. We also have posted for you the phone number for the Department of Assessment, along with a little note, a little hint that says if you do call Department of Assessment, don't press any options or extensions, just let the message play to the end. You'll have a higher rate of success of reaching a person after the message plays. There's also a link to a form that if you want to send them a message, you can click on that link. It'll bring it to the Department of Assessment's form, and you can type them a note and send it to them right through their website. So all of that is right there on our Q&A section for you to just click on if that'll be helpful for you.
Okay.
And just like with our staff, where we get lots of phone calls and emails, they will get back to you, both our customer service as well as Department of Assessment. Just give them time. This time of year, a lot of folks are calling in with lots of questions. So, and obviously they try to pick up live every call they can, but if not, leave a message or send them a message through their the system or by email, and they will get back to you as quickly as they can.
Okay, so at this time, it does look like Rob and I have tackled the questions that we can assist with. We are seeing some feedback that folks are concerned that the Department of Assessment is not necessarily being responsive, and Rob and I are certainly sorry to hear that, but we of course have limited ability, if any ability, to do anything on that topic. But in the interim, if there are any more questions about this presentation or filing with the Assessment Review Commission, Rob and I are certainly available for a little while yet. In the interim, while the audience is perhaps thinking of another question to ask, I'm going to reiterate that if you found this video helpful and you are concerned after we end for the evening that there is information in the video that would assist you while you're actually working on your application, there is a shorter version of this presentation available on ARC's homepage, askarcnassau.com. That's ARC with the A-R-C rather than A-R-K. And that video is roughly 6 minutes long, so it may be more helpful while you're working on the appeal than necessarily the longer version that Rob and I assisted you with this evening. So with all that being said, I'm going to again thank Rob for the wonderful presentation. I hope that you all agree that it was helpful, and I certainly hope that Rob and I were able to assist you all with your questions. And I also would like to thank Legislator Schaefer for inviting us to speak to you tonight. So with all that being said, Rob and I will take a few more moments to await any new questions, and barring any new ones, we're going to bid you all a good evening. All right, so Rob, it looks like we did a pretty bang-up job. We weren't necessarily seeing any new questions. So thank you all very much and have a wonderful evening.